Hi, this is Mark Arnold with another episode of Fun Ideas Podcasts. This is number 301, since I made a big deal about it last episode being 300. Um, Today we have brand new guest. I've met him a few times via these type of chats, and his name is Bob Koenig, and he seems to know like everything I know. So I don't know what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about everything, so we'll find out. Uh, I have
That's
monkeys from
good.
the last time. We have a mutual fondness for the monkeys, so there we go. But uh, I guess, hello, Bob. Welcome to the show, and tell me a little bit about yourself.
Hello. Hello. Oh, where do I begin? I love popular culture like you, especially big on the 60s and some of the 70s. I guess that's when I was a kid, so it's stuff that stuck to me. Um, but I like all different things. I've had a rock band that appeared on national TV. Uh, I've done a lot of solo material after that, recording wise and songwriting. Um, I've had articles published. I've had a chapter in a book. Uh, and I know you write many books, and I collect all sorts of ephemera, comic books. I have a big comic book collection. I like Mad Magazine too. I especially love the old Mad specials, worse for Mad, more trash for Mad, all that stuff. You know that stuff.
Yeah.
The ridiculously expensive Mad. I have a story on that book.
Okay.
Um, I've had lots of different pets. Uh,
Pets.
uh, uh, I study different religions,
Wow. Okay.
so I go all over the place. So let's
Yeah.
see where we hit on with similar interests.
So we don't forget, and you just mentioned it. Well, let's stick with Mad for a bit because what is your ridiculously expensive Mad story?
I was getting Mad Magazine back then, and I know it was listed in one of the issues, as being available.
Hmm.
And I liked it even back then, the fact that it had a lot of the different bonuses in it.
Hmm.
And um, my mother and I were at local Corvettes. That was a department store on Long Island
Hmm.
back in the day. And in their book department, there was a copy of the ridiculously expensive Mad, and I start looking at it, and it was sealed in plastic, so I couldn't open
Oh,
it. And I wanted it so bad, but my mom looked at it and said, I think the price was 9.95 or
yeah,
something,
yeah.
if I'm right. And she said that is right. It's ridiculously expensive. So so she didn't buy it for me, and I had that in the back of my mind for years. I was always like, I have to get this. I have to get this.
Mhm.
So I finally acquired a copy. Um, I could be wrong. I think I paid like $60 for it. So and the outside cover, the jacket was
Mhm.
missing, but
Mhm.
the person who sold it to me made like a photocopy of it
Mhm.
and wrapped it up. So that's the thing that's different from it. But I was very happy to finally get it, and I was like, you see, Mom, now I still got it, no matter what you say. It
Uh,
was like a revenge purchase in that regard.
Other than the dust jacket, it's complete. It has all the inserts and everything like that. Or
I don't think it had the record,
oh, okay,
but I had the record anyway,
right.
elsewhere. So it worked
Mm.
out in that regard. Um,
So you told me your story. I'll tell you my story on that. Okay. So I started reading Mad in '74, so it was a long gone out of print book, and I knew nothing about it, the ridiculously expensive Mad, until I started buying back issues. And then I probably saw the same issue you did originally, and I go, hey, I didn't know they put this book out. That'd be kind of cool to find that one. But
Uh,
there's no eBay back then. There were used bookstores, but nobody carried stuff like that. And yeah, so
right,
I
right.
said, well, uh, wonderful pipe dream. Then somewhere along the line, probably in the 80s or 90s, probably 90s, um, I was at the San Diego Comic Convention. Somebody was selling one that was missing quite a few of the inserts and the dust jacket for $10. And I said, 10 bucks. You
No.
know, it has most of them is a little rough and everything like that. So I had that version for about 20, 25 years. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, I have a friend named Lee who runs Lee's Comics in California, and he got a pristine copy that had everything in it and the dust jacket, and he
Wow.
was selling it for like $200 or something like that. And I was working for him on a convention, and I said, $200? Can I take this in lieu of pay? And he said, sure. So, because he was going to pay me like $200 help for the weekend, so I said, all right, thanks, so, I have it from that. And then
Wow.
I ended up selling the other copy that I had, I think for $20. So I got a profit on that
All right.
one. So
That's all right. That worked.
apparently they are very hard to find. And that's the only complete one I've ever seen. And yeah, so I do have one, but
The other
eh,
hardcover books too. I think I have Mad
yeah.
for Keeps, but not with the dust jacket
Yeah,
either.
I have all the hardcover books, but only one of them, and it's not Mad for Keeps, has a dust jacket. That one I also got from Lee, but yeah, those are a little bit easier to find. I see those on occasion here and there, never with dust jackets. When they have the dust jackets, and suddenly it's whoop on the price, and it's like, okay.
But I
So
loved collecting like the more trash from Mad, worse from Mad, and Mad Follies.
yeah,
And I'm picky in that I need to have it with the special bonus still included with it.
yeah,
And there's so many copies that you find, and even on eBay and stuff where um, it'll say it's complete.
right,
So then you ask them, does it really have the bonus? They go, what's that? So the
yeah.
people that selling it don't even realize.
I think I have all my specials have bonuses that had them. Because they don't put them in the specials anymore. But uh, I remember, yeah, in the early days when I'd buy old Mad specials, I didn't care if the insert was in there. I just wanted them. Of course, I didn't pay a lot for those. And then when I went back
Right.
years later, I looked, hey, I never got this. Uh, and they never reprint those things very often. They did in that ridiculous expensive Mad, but like one thing they've never reprinted, they probably never will, is the Mad Special 5 that had the Mad flag in it. And I don't know if you ever saw that one. It came about 1971 or so.
Yes, I think on the front cover is a Jack Davis art, and I think Abby Hoffman's in the picture and stuff
I'm
like
not
that.
sure what the cover is off the top of my head, but
But
it
there is
has a
some kind of
it,
flag,
it
right?
has a Mad
Right.
flag, and the reason why, and I will censor myself to do this, it's like it says like I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation under God, including, and then it says, well, I'll say some of them, I guess. I don't know how offensive these things are. Wops, Dagos, da 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 da, N-word, da 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 da. And it went through all the racial epithets that, you know, you know, that you could go through. And it's like,
Like
uh,
watching an episode of All in the Family.
yeah, and it's like, well, it's the times, yes, All in the Family was on. They said that word on that show at one point. Blazing Saddles was a couple years away. They said that word. Richard Pryor had albums with that word. So, it's like back then, not saying it was a good word to use, it just was slightly more acceptable than now. Now it's
Right,
like they
right.
just totally dismiss it. So if they're ever doing a Mad compilation, don't expect the Mad flag to be reprinted anytime soon. So it's yeah,
Well, they had to hit a boundary back then that nowadays certain things like that aren't
yeah.
aren't able to be crossed. So it's
Right.
like Sean Lennon just put out that box set of
Oh yeah.
John and Yoko with the Sometime in New York City,
Hmm.
and there's a certain particular song that is not included in it.
Yeah.
So
I see their point. I kind of wish that they just would put it in maybe a censored version, just not bleep it, but silence it out for the word, and just so we can have the rest of the song. But okay,
I thought
fine.
maybe it'd be like an unlisted bonus track somewhere,
Yeah, I
like it
thought
would
that
be
too for
off
a
in the
time,
distance, and there it is,
Yeah.
But
I also thought this because actually I got this today, so I'll show you. It's a uncut. So it has the monkey.
oh,
Yeah, this is at Barnes and Noble if you but anyway, they always have on these things, which I don't think I have. Oh yeah. It always has like a free CD. This one has nothing to
right,
do with the monkeys, but
ah,
they had a Lennon one a few months ago and it had a free CD. And I said,
yes, for the
"Ooh,
mind
maybe,
games,
maybe they."
right?
Well, they did another one for the one-on-one concert. One to
Oh,
yeah, so they did two of them. But on that one, I said maybe they'll put the woman as the on this one just as a bonus track. It'd be funny, No, they didn't. It's like you can't get it in the big expensive box, but you can get it free with this magazine. So.
so they put the monkeys on the cover, but they don't put them in the on the
Well,
CD.
yeah, the freebie here has 15 track gumbo of the freshest cuts from New Orleans. I guess I don't know what they're thinking on this particular out. They should add a monkeys related thing. It does have a brand new interview with Mickey Dolenz in it, so
Uh-huh.
so
Would have
that's
been
the
a nice place to put a few. Oh yeah,
yeah,
put a few of the different songs from the Rhino boxes onto it,
right.
just to give
Yeah.
somebody a taste of what all came out.
And they do review all the albums. They only review the albums that had the full quartet, so there's no uh Hoolit and no changes and no instant replay, no present.
Wow,
Yes, they just go directly from head to just us. It's like, wow, that's kind of a interesting way to do it, but
that is. I've never seen
yeah,
that before.
yeah, and they consider Good Times and Christmas Party to be full quartet albums, even though David had passed by that point on all of them. But whatever. I would have put all the albums,
Well,
but
he's
that's just me.
technically on
Yeah,
there, so.
yeah. Um. So there we go.
And
But
your books here, I'm going to do too. You have a book on Harvey comics?
I do. I don't have it in front of me.
That's all
Uh.
right.
But Harvey Comics was my first love. I can tell you a little bit about my history. Is just like you, but I grew up on the West Coast, not the East Coast, and so I'm California based. I'm in Oregon now. But
Nice.
I I was always interested in pop culture things, and as time grew on, I had comic books from birth, but I really started collecting them seriously in the 70s. Mad, I started buying in 74. Cracked and Crazy and all those shortly thereafter, Lampoon and everything else. Um, and Harvey Comics became this weird obsession that, they draw them all the same. I thought it was weirder than the Archie comics because all the characters had the basic same head, same face, same body, except for maybe Baby Huey or something. And
Right?
I just I don't know what it was around in the 80s. I took it upon myself. I want to get everyone ever published. And I actually did have everyone ever published up until about 3 years ago. Because
Wow.
and then I actually sold the collection. People say, "You sold your Harvey collection. How could you do that?" It's like, well, it was one of those Godfather offers I could not refuse. So it's like, you
Nah.
know, and I kind of regretted selling it from the standpoint of there's a few things I said, well, I should have kept that. But a lot of the things that I kind of regretted, I went out and rebought. They weren't very expensive. I mean,
Well, interesting point with that.
yeah.
I have a bunch of comics that I like that didn't come out in a hardcover form or in any sort of form,
Hmm.
like Tower comics,
Oh yeah.
but the Thunder Agents have been reissued, but not some of the other stuff that Tower Comics had.
Tippy Teen.
So I have bound copies of all the different Tower Comics issues,
Oh wow.
and I have some Charlton and a couple of other obscure comics that I've made books out of. In fact, all the Monkeys comics from Dell, I have a hardcover book of.
That's cool.
Well, I'm just getting made now is the Harvey Thriller series
Oh yeah.
into hardcover.
Hmm.
Two books are being made into Harvey Thriller from like Spy Man,
Yeah.
B Man,
Yeah.
uh,
Do you have the two spirit issues? There's two,
right, the two
yeah, right.
Spirit
And
issues.
then there's
So things like that I'm making
Fighting
into two
American
books.
was one of
Fighting
them.
America, right? There was
Yes,
one
yeah.
issue of that.
And I can't remember all of them. I have it in my book, but it's like, I obsessed about Harvey's for 30 something years. Wrote the what I consider the definitive history book, but somebody else can write a history book too if they want. But I actually went all the way back in time to find out how the Wiernikov family came over here from Europe. And I found the ship manifest, and I found things like the census from the early part of the 20th century and things like that. I got their original last name, which was not Harvey, of course. It was
Right.
Wiernikov, and it was spelled a couple different ways. So his real
Uh,
name was the owner of the company is Alfred Harvey Wiernikov. And then somewhere along the line, you dropped the Wiernikov, and then they became Alfred Harvey, and then the brothers followed suit. So Leon Harvey, Robert Harvey, and there we go. You know, so
but it's nice that they kept a line of kids books, kids comics
hmm
at a time when things of Marvel and so forth were coming up in the line, and
hmm
they still had something that could be at the drugstores. Like I remember that as a kid. Like if I visited my aunt and uncle in Ohio, the local drugstore would have either Harvey or Gold Key comics,
yeah,
but they didn't carry Marvel or DC. It was
yeah,
really, really, really interesting. But the local stores would get some Harveys here and there, but for the most part, it was mostly the superhero DC and Marvel by then.
right. And for years, the Harveys kind of stopped in the early '90s. Well, they sold the company, and then this other guy named Jeff Montgomery made comics for about 5 years in the early '90s, and then he threw in the towel. About the time they did a Casper and Richie Rich movie, two different movies. Casper one was a success, Richie Rich not so much, but it's the
Hmm.
Macaulay Culkin one. The Casper one actually was pretty successful, and
Yeah, that was all right.
but they thought, well, we're a movie studio now, and it's like, no, And I was publishing a fanzine. I published one for 21 years called the Harveyville Fun Times, and I was so upset when they said we're going to stop publishing comics. And for years, I always pleaded with them, bring back Harvey comics, bring them back as digest, just like Archie or something like that. At this point, I don't because first of all, I don't want to collect them at this point, but also comics aren't the same. I mean, it's like when you used to walk in, even when comics were like just a buck or two, they're still pretty cheap, but now if they do new comics, they're like 5, 6, 7, 8, $9, and
Right.
that's a lot for, kids certainly don't care. They don't want to buy that stuff. They'd rather buy a video game or watch something else on TV, I think, at this point. So it would
And
just
not
be,
only that, now because of the movies, both competing companies with their films
yeah.
and TV shows, that seems to have taken import.
Hmm.
And because the various plot lines are quite different than what they were in the comic book,
Right.
it sort of loses a viewer or a reader.
Yeah.
Let's say, you love the movies and you say, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to pick up a couple of the comics. And you're like,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
nothing like what I know from the theater.
Yeah.
So it loses them.
Yeah. The only thing I collect now is I don't know if you go into comic shops nowadays at all, but
Oh yeah,
okay. But
Grasshoppers comics,
oh,
Williston
okay.
Park.
All right. Well, nowadays they do the facsimile edition, so they're basically reprinting the old comics with the same ads, and especially if it's really old, like Golden Age stuff, it's like, ah, yeah. And I don't mind paying like 8, $10. It's better than paying like $3 million for it,
Right.
so
Hey,
yeah.
when you think of it, that's the right move because in TV you have I don't know if you have it out by you, Me TV
Oh
or
yeah. Yeah.
Antenna TV. There's a lot of stations that primarily are just on reruns,
Yeah.
and that seems to be pretty popular.
Yeah.
So, if people want to go and buy one of those graphic novels of like say issue 1 through 10 for $60, they can grab, a new copy of something
Yeah.
and get that. And some of the DC ones, they've even put them out where they're in more of the size like they were when they came out in the
Right, the Golden
40s.
Age size. Yeah, yeah. I like
So,
that. Yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with that. In fact, they say they're doing pretty well with those. I
Yeah.
guess they are, or they wouldn't keep doing it. But
Yeah. My only nod to it is if it's something like that I didn't buy off the stands originally. That's my, if I bought it off the stands originally, I just feel like, I don't want to buy a facsimile of that. Even if I still don't have the even if I don't have that comic anymore, it's just like
nor you,
I want to know what the older stuff is like because, a lot of it has always been too expensive to buy. It's always been out of my price range, a lot of that stuff. So,
right?
it's nice to finally hold thing. And yeah, it's not exact, but I mean the fact that they put the advertising in there, it can kind of pretend, oh yeah, this is what it would have been like if I had this back in, you know, 1955 or something when I wasn't even alive,
Definitely.
you know, you know. So,
And it's funny we talk about music and comic books because I kind of mingled the two together.
yeah.
Uh, I don't know if you know, I had the comic book company AC Comics,
Oh, I remember
if you're
that.
familiar with them.
Yeah.
Issue number 50 of FemForce has a record in it,
Oh, okay.
and that's me. That's my band.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, long story short, I became friendly with Bill Black and Mark Heike at
Hmm.
AC,
Hmm.
and we started talking about music and comparing different things. And they liked what my band was doing and recording. They liked the recordings. And at the time, they were working with this guy who was talking about possible FemForce movie, which of course never happened. But I suggested to them, I said, well, what would you do for a music soundtrack?
Hmm.
So I said, how about I write something and have the keys recorded and in one of your comic books, sort of like the Mad Special, where you put they had the Boda's record in it.
Hmm.
So they liked the idea. So issue number 50 had this FemForce theme on the record. Um, the only problem with it, as you know, as far as collectors go, uh, people bought it, but they didn't rip the record out to play it. They kept it in the comic for the collectability of it.
Yeah.
Um, we were featured in the FemForce Up Close issue number 1,
Hmm.
and I have the original artwork for that. Thank you, Bill Black. Um, and but there we are as a comic character. So even in the issue number 200, we're not drawn in the issue, but there's a picture of us from back then in the comic book. So
So,
we're still in comic land somewhere or another.
well, what was the name of your group? You just
The Keys.
The Keys. Okay, I thought you just said that, but originally you didn't. And so, like, what
Sorry.
group? Okay, The Keys. Okay, did you have any traction? Any minor hits, major hits? In your career? Or...
Well, like I said, we were on Dance Party USA in 1988.
All right.
Um, we were the only Long Island area act on that show, other than Debbie Gibson at the time.
Uh,
So our music was quite different than that, but we were more power pop sort of
hmm.
sound.
Hmm.
Uh, but but that was a great show to be on. We did a couple other shows, but like local video shows that we
Yeah.
were on.
Did you ever get on
Um,
Uncle Floyd or anything like that?
that would have been cool.
Oh,
That would have been cool. I didn't have that connection at the time,
okay.
unfortunately.
Yeah, you're not John Bon Jovi, huh? I think he's got his start on the Uncle Floyd show and actually posted it after Floyd passed. And it's like, this is me where I got my start. And it's like, wow, of course he was nobody, nobody knew who he was back then,
Right? And
but
Peter and Davy were on
yeah,
Uncle Floyd, and the Ramones, of course.
yeah. People always ask me, how do you know about Uncle Floyd? You're in the West Coast. Well, there's a brief time, and that's when I saw the Peter shows. I never saw the Davy shows, that he syndicated around the country. And so, got to see Uncle Floyd for about a year and a half. And then it just went away. And then I'm like, oh, but I always remembered it. I thought it was pretty funny stuff. And I said, wow, but, eh, and
Yeah, the only thing I had to see him then was on UHF, so I had very grainy
well,
channel of it to
yeah,
see.
well, I
But
was on UHF also. It was channel 31 in Sacramento, which,
wow,
unfortunately, my dad, well, he still lives in the same house. We lived in the hills a little bit, so we could we're in the San Jose area. You get San Jose, San Francisco's right by it. You can get that. But, the fact that we were up in the hills, you could also get Sacramento stations, which were a lot further out. He had an antenna on the roof that, you could
nice.
turn around and get things. And so, we try to find new UHS stations back then. And it's like, hey, here's a station. And then 31 played like old sitcoms and different things like that. And then suddenly out of the blue, they played Uncle Floyd and they would play it twice a night. So I'd watch it like, around I think they played it like right after school or something like at 4:30 or something. And then they played it again like at 11. So if there's a particular episode that I liked, I would tape it at 11 after I
Sure.
watched it during the day, and unfortunately I didn't save those tapes, you know, I said this to Fred Velez, oh yeah, and it's like, well, I thought everybody kept these things. Why am I keeping these things? But now I kind of wish I had kept them, but oh well. I don't know if
At
I had
least you
the
had them
guts.
that way. In the 70s, I used to take a cassette player and tape the audio of the Monkees episodes when they were on TV.
I never did that with them.
It was hard to say you were a Monkees fan in the 70s.
Yeah.
Boy, did I get laughed at or booed at, and
I never
uh,
did that with the monkeys, but I did do it with Bugs Bunny. There'd be they'd have little lines of dialogue that I liked, and so there's certain cartoons I wanted to get, you know,
so
audio
you got the
copies of.
audio of that.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and sometimes they'd sing a song, and the song was kind of funny, and so I'd keep that and stuff like that. Well, I don't know how well you know Bugs Bunny, but they have this one called Hillbilly Hair where they do a square dance, and then they go knock 'em low, knock 'em high, stick your finger in his eye, and all this stuff. I thought that was really funny, so I got that on cassette tape, just taping it off the air one Saturday, and then I'd play it back, and I could play it back anytime I wanted to. And I said, yeah. Nowadays I have it all on Blu-ray, it's like, but back then,
Uh, I
yeah,
might confuse some of those Bugs Bunny cartoons one with the other, but I
yeah.
think I know which one you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Well, they only did that square dance thing once, so yeah, that was just a noticeable one. They did this song in one of them where I actually know the title. It's called "Here We Go," but not many people would necessarily know that. It has Columbus and they're discovering America, and then Bugs Bunny takes a banjo out and starts singing, "Columbus was the discoverer of America, and he sailed the sea in 1492." And I said, I like that song. I'm gonna tape that. So I had a tape with all these stupid little songs that Bugs Bunny would sing, just from watching week after week on the Saturday morning Bugs Bunny Roadrunner show. So,
That's all right. That's
yeah,
what you had to do back then.
yeah.
Uh, Me and my friends, we had a cassette copy of Head recorded off of
Wow.
when it was on TV the one time.
Yeah.
We just had the audio,
Hmm.
and so not having seen the movie before, we're trying to figure out what was going on with it,
Yeah.
just from the audio.
Yeah.
It's still one of my favorite movies. I
Yeah.
could watch it
Well, it's kind of like the
anytime. Put
soundtrack.
it on, I
I got
watch
the
it.
soundtrack before I ever saw the movie, long before it. So I was trying to figure out what was going
What
on.
those little things were. Yeah,
Yeah, and I go, "What's Bela Lugosi in this for?" Because I knew his voice, and I knew that was the Black Cat where he says, "Supernatural, perhaps."
perhaps,
You know, baloney, perhaps not.
perhaps not.
And I knew that was, but some of them I didn't know what they were. I was like, "How does this fit into everything?" And then I just always say now, which I love Head the movie, but it's kind of like their version of Magical Mystery Tours. So, it doesn't have to make a whole lot of sense. I mean, it has a basic storyline that they're kind of boxed in and forced to do things, but that's pretty much it for plot line. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, it just goes through so many different genres of things,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
every time you see it, you get something else from it.
Right.
So that's whereas the 33 and a third revolutions, some of the music was good, but didn't I can't really watch it. I
That one's
don't
harder to
really care
watch, I'll
for
agree.
it.
Yeah. My favorite time of watching Head was on the 50th anniversary. So this is 2018, is that right? Yeah. And Mike and Mickey were there, and this is in LA at the
uh,
Egyptian Theater, and so was people like Tony Basil, who did the choreography and danced with Davy in the film, and
right.
uh, Victor Mature's daughter was there,
Oh
and
my goodness.
yeah, the guy Rodney Bingenheimer, who doubled for Davy and played monkeys all the time, and Henry Deltz, the photographer, was there. It was cool, you know. And Henry made a little special film at first that showed, at the time, all these unpublished photographs of the monkeys from around the time they did Head, and
Nice.
I think he's since published them. I mean, I've seen them before, but at the
Hmm,
time they
hmm.
were brand new, so he made a little film out of it. So that was cool. Anyway,
Now, what got you to like a lot of different music from that time period?
well,
Like I know you interviewed one of the Raiders, Paul Revere and the Raiders. If people don't know what
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's Mark Lindsay's birthday today. That
Oh,
tells you the
okay.
date. Well, happy birthday, Mark.
Happy birthday, Mark. Actually, I was never a big fan of theirs. For the longest time because I didn't know much about them. If you're talking about Paul Revere and the Raiders, the first thing I knew that they did was when the Monkees did That Was Then, This Is Now, and then they did a version of Kicks, and I
Kicks.
found out, oh, Kicks wasn't originally done by the Monkees, or it's not a new track. It's a remake of a cover of somebody else's track, and I go, oh, okay. And it's actually the Quentin Tarantino films that used a couple of their songs like "Hungry" and stuff like that. And I go, oh, this is a pretty good band, yeah. And
They so missed the boat. I mean, the
yeah,
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood you're talking about.
yes, exactly,
The deluxe Blu-ray copy came out with a fold open cover, and it
hmm,
had a colored vinyl 45 of the two Raiders songs.
yeah,
And it also came with a little mini Mad
yeah.
magazine as well.
Took me
Uh,
forever to find that thing because I missed the boat, didn't know it came out
uh,
originally, but I finally found one relatively inexpensive.
well, I said the band missed the boat. Mark Lindsay, at that time, he should have put out some other product of the Raiders, even getting some. There's supposedly like over 100 songs in the vault because their contract with Columbia was they could go and record anytime they wanted.
Mm,
And they have a lot of material, and something could have come out at that point to spark an interest in them. The problem with them is they changed members as much as they changed styles.
right,
So uh, when you got used to a certain team as a band, the next thing you know, somebody else was there, and then a
right.
couple of years later, somebody else was there. Uh,
I,
I found that interesting, and still, wanted to collect everything.
yeah,
Um, but you interviewed Phil Volk, who came
yeah,
from, I would say, is the the classic
Yeah,
lineup that
that's the
everybody
version
would
of the
know.
band I like the best with him in it, you know.
Well, the
Yeah.
thing is, back then they still were doing their own music. If you looked at some of those albums,
Yeah.
everybody had a song that they sang. Everybody had a hand in songwriting.
Right.
And then once it changed to Porgy and the Raiders featuring Mark Lindsay, it was basically Mark Lindsay and Terry Melcher's show.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's Terry Melcher's voice again on the background harmonies. I'm like, let the others sing. They're the ones who are really in the band. I'm like, what are you doing? You
Uh,
know, just it, things thinking of Brian Wilson with the Beach Boys of doing albums in the studio
yeah.
and flying the Beach Boys vocals onto the tracks and putting that out as the Beach Boys. Well, the Raiders were kind of doing their own thing as a band, and then Mark Lindsay was doing his own thing with the albums,
Hmm.
and it sort of like became these portions of bands rather than a full unit.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
but that's
Well,
what happened with a lot of bands back then, I think.
yeah. Yeah. Um, so you asked me a question, I'll try to answer it for you. Is
Oh,
my interest in music. Uh, so originally, and I've said this story before, but I've said it on this show before, but I wasn't that interested in the Monkees when they were on Saturday morning. That was the first time I saw them, was Saturday morning repeats. But I liked the music. I liked the theme song and stuff like that, but I just thought the show was just too silly. I don't know why, because I like other silly things like the banana splits, but for some reason to
yes.
have live action males dancing around, acting goofy, romping around and stuff. Oh, too silly for me at age 3, 4, 5. So, um, I would listen to the Monkees theme song and then I'd change the channel. Maybe I'd leave it on, but for the most part, the Monkees at that age was just an excuse to. I've watched enough Saturday morning television, time to go out and play, and it's like, so I didn't become a fan for another decade, and in the meantime, I did like songs on shows. So, I mean, I had many TV show related like Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers and Multiplication Rock, all these different albums when I was a kid. I didn't go into like regular, top 40 music, but my mom would buy a few records here and there. And so, I knew stuff by Leon Russell and just random songs. She'd like to buy
Cool.
45s. Um, I knew of the Beatles, but I wasn't a Beatles fan. I knew that they used to be together and they were very big, but that was about it. And when everything started to change was I became a comedy fan before I became a music fan. And so anytime there was something good in comedy, my dad would always try to introduce it to me. So this is went back as early as the early 70s. Marty Feldman did a TV show called Marty Feldman's Comedy Machine, and he'd let me stay up at age 5 to watch this stuff, and it was funny. And then a few years later, Monty Python hit, and he let me stay up late because I used to play it really late, and he didn't like me staying up late, but he says, you can on Monty Python night, which was like a Thursday night or something like that. And Saturday Night Live originally was too late.
Too late.
And so I didn't get to see the first season or so, but he'd always rave about how funny Chevy Chase was and blah, 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 blah. And then my mom started audio taping him. So I used to hear some of the sketches. And then they got one of the first VCRs. So starting the second season, I couldn't stay up late to watch it, but they'd tape it for me. So I got to watch it the next day.
Nice.
So on one of those episodes, Eric Idle was the host, and of course I wanted to see that one because of Monty Python. And he comes out and he says, "Well, I'm gonna play a little song for you." And he pulls out the guitar and he goes, "Broom, here comes the sun. Broom, here comes the sun." And I say, "It's all right." And then somebody comes out, this is a really great song, but let's save it for the end of the show. And I looked at my parents and I go, what song is he doing anyway? Yeah, I had
Oh
no idea
no.
because it can't tell from that. And my parents said, "Oh, we have the album that's on it. Get that album over there with the guys walking across the street." And I go, "Okay," So I put it on, and it's on side two. So I put side two. Here comes the sun, and then I hear the real song, and I go, "Oh, I've heard this song." It just didn't sound like anything when Eric Idle was
Funny.
screaming it. So I said, what else is on here?" So I flipped it over, and I play "Come Together," and I go, "Oh my God, I know this song." And then the next song was something, and I go, "I know this song too." And then I don't think I knew the next song, but then Octopus's Garden came out, and I said, "I know that
That
song
was fun
too."
too.
And I said, "This isn't right. Something wrong here," because my thought was, you know, you can only have so many good songs on a greatest hits collection. I don't know why I had that thought in my head, you know? And so to have one album that was just a regular album having so many hits on it, it boggled my mind. I said, this doesn't make any sense.
It was
You know,
part of marketing it at the time. That's what attracted you was the
yeah.
like the hits collection. It just seemed to be like that would be the
Well,
best of the best.
well, also my parents had some of the hits collection, so it's like you just kind of think, why would you buy a regular album? You wait till the hits collections come out, and you get all the good stuff, and you leave the crap on, on the cutting room floor, as it were. Not necessarily the case in a lot of cases, but I didn't know this, but anyway. Uh,
Well,
because
as
hmm?
far as the 60s into the 70s go, I'm thinking of we didn't have MTV and stuff like that, but
Yeah,
us kids, because you mentioned Saturday morning.
yeah,
Saturday morning was a big time for kids to learn music.
yeah,
Let me go into that. Of course, back on, I've got a shirt with the Beatles cartoon on it,
yeah,
but that was during the 60s. And of course, I saw Yellow Submarine when it came out. So
hmm,
that was a big thing that got me into it. Anything and everything Yellow Submarine I had to have.
yeah,
But on Saturday morning, you had, like you mentioned, the Banana Splits, which was kind of a bubblegum amalgamation of the Monkees meet the Beatles in Magical Mystery Tour with the animal costumes.
right,
You put all that together and you got the Banana Splits. But then you had music on everything from Josie and the Pussycats,
yeah.
the Archies, of course.
Arches are
Um,
well back then.
you had even the Harlem Globetrotters
Oh yeah,
had an album and a cartoon. So
mm,
everything that was a cartoon, even if they didn't sing the song like on Scooby Doo, there would be some sort of song going on in the
yeah,
background.
yeah,
A lot of it was bubblegum, but a lot of it was pop. So in a way, these cartoon romps and these things of showing even cartoons just playing the song, it it got kids into music.
yeah,
Apparently, that's what happened with like REM. Apparently, REM picked up on some of that stuff
yeah.
early on, and that was the stuff that got them interested in
Right.
music. Um, so yeah, I had the Banana Splits 45s out of Kellogg's cereal. I
Yeah.
had
And
the
that helped
Archie's
too. Yeah,
albums. I
having
had
all
the
the
Josie and the
cereal box
Pussycats
records. Yeah.
singles
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and all that stuff. And that that was a big deal. I consider that like a springboard to get into stuff later on.
Right.
Um, uh, of course, I heard other different sounds and things. My sitter I had when I was younger used to bring Tommy by the Who over, and I was like, "Mom, I want that album." She says, "I don't think you should have this," and I was like, "But I like the music, so
Yeah.
I had it at a young age."
Yeah.
My very first concert, though, was Johnny Cash at the
Wow.
at Madison Square Garden in '69.
Hmm.
Uh, but the Statler brothers and Carl Perkins was playing with them,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I have vague memories of it because his wife was in the hospital giving birth to their son while here he is doing a concert. But
Wow.
that
Wow.
was the big deal then because my parents, my father in particular, was really into country,
Yeah.
so I heard a lot of country stuff, but I heard country pop because he played Buck Owens and
Yeah.
Earl Haggard, and that stuff too had a popish feel to it.
Yeah.
So it all worked into an amalgamation
Yeah.
to what I do. I've recorded some country stuff as well. I've
Yeah.
done folk music kind of stuff as well too. So that's all the genres of music
Yeah,
I like, but it all stems from this early material, just like
yeah.
what you're talking
Well,
about.
the shows we haven't mentioned, but you mentioned Buck Owens is like, I got exposed to country from Hee Haw. Hee
Yeehaw.
Haw, yeah. And then they always tended to play that show back to back with Lawrence Welk, so you got introduced to like more big band type stuff. Now everybody goes, "Oh, my grandmother made me watch it." I actually enjoyed Lawrence Welk show. I thought it was pretty cool. It's like if somebody was a good singer, I didn't care if it was kind of dorky and square, It's like,
We
you know,
lived in a two-family house with my grandparents when I was single digit,
yeah.
and my grandparents would wheel out a portable black and white TV on the porch
Mhm.
and put on Lawrence Welk at
There
night.
you go.
So I saw that back then. Here's the
Yes.
Bobby and the Sissy.
Yes. And I was always fascinated. Everybody says, "Oh, accordions, you use accordion, go to jail or something stupid like that." But it's like, I don't know, I found the instrument fascinating. I never learned how to play one, but when Myron Fawn would go, and it's like, that's pretty cool, and he was good at it, so I didn't care, you know.
But because of that, I also have a collection of like exotica music
Yeah.
or um, uh, Sizer, early Moog type of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, my friend Dana Countryman, hi Dana, he does a lot of Moog albums and stuff, and really, 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 really good at it.
Mhm.
And if you ever want an album where they would say it's easy listening, but it's not, try some Esquivel.
Oh yeah. I have
Oh my God,
Esquivel and
it is all over the
and
place.
Perry Kingsley there. Yeah,
Right,
the
right.
in sound from way out.
Good
Or
album. Yep.
all that stuff. It's funny, that particular the Perry Kingsley duo, they used to play the local station in San Francisco, Channel 2, which is still on KTVU. They used to do little children's like little public service announcements, and they'd use like the some of
The
the
music
Perry
was in the
Kingsley
background.
in the background, and it's like, where did they get this stuff? And it's like years later, I said, man, that must have been the only album they had in their in house because they used like every track off that album. Then of course, I never thought about that they did that electric parade at Disneyland and Disney World. It's like, I just thought that was an original tune for Disney, and then I found out, oh, that's from Perry Kingsley.
Ah,
And it's like, it's the Baroque Hoedown or something is like
right,
the real
right.
title, and it's like, okay. And then the Beatles even used a snippet on one of their Christmas records, and I said, how did they do that? And then I didn't realize that the Perry Kingsley album came out before, that. I thought it came out first by Disney, like I said. So,
We had that in New
I
York.
learned
There was a
everything.
show called Wonderama. It
Oh
was
yeah,
like for kids on a Sunday morning.
yeah,
I think it was Sunday morning would show it. And that too, they would have these different segments where you'd hear that synthesizer music. And
yeah,
then once I got the Perry Kingsley albums, I was like, I've heard this before, like
yeah.
suddenly it brought you back to something.
Yeah. They did show Wonderama. I lived in Southern California for 3 years when I was a kid, and they showed
Wow.
the Bob McAllister version.
Hmm.
I never knew the Sonny Fox version, but I've heard of it
No,
in
me neither.
retrospect. But and I go, oh, okay, it's like, and then years later, I was like, whatever happened to that guy? I didn't know. Of course he's passed, but it's like. They never played when we moved back to the San Francisco Bay Area. They didn't play it up there, so I kind of lost track of certain things like that, that
Sure,
they went on
sure.
for years afterwards, and then finally they just quit. Get the get the hook saying, "Get off! You've been on for 30 years now." Um,
But
it's
the things of our youth right now,
yeah,
you look at the what we've been discussing. Mad renewed itself starting at issue one, but most of the issues are now uh,
pretty much reprints. Yeah,
reruns. It's
yeah,
reissues of stuff, although it might be now colorized, where
yeah,
before it was just black and white.
yeah.
Uh,
All the
comics are very pricey, and
yeah,
to me, sorry to the writers and so forth. I don't think they're as good as they used to be.
right.
Um, not as fun.
Yeah,
Um, and music now, it's download. I mean, my you can find all my music on Spotify or YouTube and stuff like that, which is great. If somebody wants to hear it, I can say, "Oh, here's the song I told wanted to tell you about. It's right here. I'll send you a link to it."
yeah,
And that works versus sending out a CD or a record or whatever. But
right.
I'm used to like having it,
Well,
having the item in my hand instead of
well, I still,
it's just in the air somewhere.
I still like having it, but I am very picky. Uh, I forgot, were you on the Monkeys, A's, and B's talk with Ed?
No,
Okay.
I wanted to. I
Okay.
missed that
I
one.
didn't remember
Yeah,
which one you were on. But I was complaining because they spread it like 24 songs over two CDs that could have fit on one CD.
it could
And
have easily fit on one CD, and
and they only did the 60s version of their catalog, and it's like they put out singles later on. They should have put them all on there. They put their whole career. It's their 60th anniversary. So I took a pass on it. I actually saw it in the store today, and I was looking at it, and I go, should I buy it? And I go, no, because there's nothing on it I really need. I mean, I'm just buying it for the packaging, and it's like I don't
it
want to
is.
buy
It's a
things.
wonderful package.
Yeah,
Uh, I would have put A side and then the B side, A side and then the B
yeah,
side.
yeah,
But being that each disc was only around 30 minutes, they could have added like all the 45s that came in the bonus box of Rhino.
right,
They could have added the Tema de Monkeys. They could have even added Randy Scousskid with the
yeah,
alternate title.
yeah,
And then, like you, stuff that came out
yeah.
afterwards.
And
They
then,
could have
like
easily
in
added.
recent times, there's the Good Times EP, and then there's a Christmas Party EP, and that stuff's only on vinyl. It'd be
Only on
nice
the vinyl.
to put it on CD, with everything else, to have a home for it, but
Right, right.
oh well, maybe next time. Now, Charles Rosenet thinks that they'll do more, and this is just the first of three or something. And I go, I don't think so, because I don't know who's going to buy it. It's like that's the hard part. I mean, if I knew that there's going to be a volume two and three that would have the stuff I really wanted, maybe I would invest in the volume one. But they made no uh announcement saying this is the first of multi volumes. It's just the same
Right,
old tracks
right.
again, and it's like, okay, they might be the mono mix from the single, but I'm not big on that. I don't care about mono versus stereo unless it's remarkably different, like there's a false start or something, and even then it's like, do I have to buy a whole CD all over again just for the false start? You I don't know. Um, eh,
Well,
uh,
sometimes I think, well, if I buy this and it sells, then maybe it'll propel them to start thinking of the next project and putting that out too. But
yeah.
at the same time, you look at stuff like, sometimes I wonder what, Apple is thinking with the Beetle product, but that's another story.
Yeah, well, I mean, we could talk about that too. I mean, everybody has their complaints about what was or was not on Anthology 4, and
That was ridiculous.
I mean, it's not a bad compilation. I re-listened to it the other day, and I said it's not a bad compilation. The problem is it's just a letdown when you have the other three and you listen to those, and then you go to four, and it's like four is like this mishmash of like, oh, we didn't fit these on the other three. Here's some more, and let's remix those reunion tracks one more time. And
Time.
it's like, and it's like,
But
okay,
not only that, half of four was already issued on other box
right,
sets.
and
So they said, well, this is for people who didn't buy those box sets.
yeah,
But initially, volume four was in what? A box set.
yeah,
So here you're buying a box set for people who don't buy
yeah,
box sets.
yeah,
What? It didn't make any sense.
yeah. I know, but um. the, there's so many things that could be done with all that stuff, but and I'm kind of the thinking where everybody's like, "Where's the Rubber Soul box set?" But I don't know if they're gonna do any more at this point. It's like
That's why I end up with a big bootleg collection,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that's
yeah.
another
Oh yeah.
story.
Well, yeah, that's the new thing now. It's like uh they put out Get Back on Disney Plus, and then they actually put out DVDs or Blu-rays, and I bought that. And then a few months later, they put out Beatles 64. Not everybody likes that special, but there's no home video release, so I bought a bootleg of it.
Right, me too.
And then now they have the redone Beatles anthology that's a little tighter, and they've got episode 9 and everything. But I don't think they're going to put out any version of that either, so I bought a bootleg of that. Yeah.
Me too.
And I still have my Disney Plus, but it's only because I have a special rate and all this other stuff. But it's like,
Well, you mentioned the Beatles
eh,
Christmas album.
yeah,
It's a no-brainer that they could have reissued that with the cover that came out for the fan club.
yeah.
I know they put out the little singles and
At least
stuff.
they finally
Yeah,
did that, because for years I said, do they even know that they have this? And it's like, it just seems like it's a no-brainer that the Beatles Christmas album should be just out there with Sinatra and everybody else.
sure.
Is just this is the Christmas album every year, it's out here, and it's like, yeah, it's goofy, it's strange. There's a few goofy tracks on it and stuff like that, but it's the Beatles,
But instead, you go on eBay or Etsy or wherever, and you see tons of copies of it. It's
Yeah,
always out there, always available.
so I
But
don't know.
so they're losing buckets full of money by
Yeah.
letting the others put this stuff out. So
Yeah. And I never know who they're trying to target because, okay, some of these things you'd say, oh, well, we're targeting new fans and trying to get new recruits, as it were, into the Beatles thing. Well, it's a heck of a way to do it with Anthology 4. It's like, why not start over with a new series like, Beatles Unreleased Volume 1, and it's like to get a new generation of fans. And then the old people like us can still buy it because, hey, this hasn't been released before.
well,
It's,
it's like with like the Beach Boys, for example. I was really happy that the Smile box set had come out.
yeah,
I was happy that a lot of the early '70s material has come out because that's some of my favorite
yeah,
time period of theirs.
yeah, me
Um,
too.
but uh, certain things that like we wish would come out, the the fans aren't getting any younger.
Yeah,
And by the time this stuff comes out,
yeah,
I mean, unfortunately, I know some friends who have passed who I wish had heard some of the things that have come out
yeah,
the past few years.
yeah,
So when is it going to be time when they start putting something out? Oh, here's Carnival of Light. Oh, I'm sorry, nobody's alive for it to hear it
yeah.
anymore.
I think what they could do is make a really and promote it this way, a really avant-garde Beatles release. And just put Carnival Light, put the extended Helter Skelter, anything like the
You
the
got
making the makings of Revolution number 9, just anything that's really bizarre and trippy like that. And just for fun, they could put it on Zapple Records and it'd be Zapple '03 or whatever. And
Well, someone talked
it's
about
like,
an
all right,
idea of
here's the
like a,
leftover crap that we didn't want to put up, but you forced us to. Here it is, and it might sell because, they put it out that way. You know, it's like stuff.
a psychedelic slash avant-garde box. The long version of "It's All Too Much."
Yeah,
Long version of Flying. There's
yeah,
all different things from that time period that just
yeah,
or all these crazy extended mixes and versions. There's a 10-minute revolution.
yeah,
Um, so, some of this is on bootleg.
yeah,
Not all of it, but
yeah.
some of it is.
Could have a best of the Beatles solo avant-garde. Have stuff from Unfinished Music, electronic sound, spooky weirdness by Ringo, and Paul's Fireman stuff.
The
Just
first person I know that ever mentioned about spooky weirdness.
well, I don't know what else Ringo has done that's avant-garde. That's about the only thing I know. You know, and even that's kind of questionable. It's just kind of goofy. But um. I always think of things. We mentioned the Christmas album. I think that I think enough time has passed that they can combine solo and group efforts, and they should put on. Lennon's and McCartney's and George's, and even Ringo's Christmas stuff on a Beatles Christmas release. It's like they did it digitally once for streaming. I forgot what song. They picked one song from each Beatle. It was
Huh.
about 7 or 8 years ago, and they had, I think it was Imagine, My Sweet Lord, something from McCartney. I don't know what they picked. Band on the Run, I think, and then like a Photograph or something. And just as a four song EP. And it wasn't a physical release, but I think it would be a cool physical release if they actually did that, put the four solo
I still
records
think
on one
it's a
release,
lot of legalese, and
Yeah, there probably
the
is. So,
lawyers are the ones making the most of all this stuff.
yeah. So I think that's why it only appeared on Spotify. So I don't know if it's still on there, but yeah, it was an official Apple release, and they were all Apple songs. So yeah. Um, but
Yeah, but there's so many things that are lost, or possibly even been thrown out, that
yeah,
there is call for, and a lot of things, thanks to the resurgence of vinyl, a lot of things have gotten reissued,
yeah.
and obscure records too. I just saw. Did you ever hear of the Shags?
Yes.
The Three Sister Group? Ah, you know them.
Yeah.
It's just getting reissued on vinyl
Yeah.
with the original cover and everything. So
Right.
that's pretty cool.
First time I heard
Uh,
of the Shags was oh, originally I was a fan of Dr. Demento. See, everything it goes back to comedy or children's music with me. So mainly comedy. If you can make me laugh, then I'm your fan. So it's like um
I
Dr.
love Tom
Demento
Lehrer.
Dr. Demento interviewed Frank Zappa probably more than once, but I remember him interviewing him once. And Zappa was on the show with him for quite a long time, and he was talking about music he liked, and he mentioned the Shags, and he says, "Yeah, I found this album, and it didn't sell, and it's about this girl group, and they play, very horribly and everything like that, but it's fascinating." And he was talking about the Shags. So for years, they did play one track from the album, but that was it. And but for years, I said, "Oh, I want to find the Shags album. That sounds interesting." I did finally find it. So yeah,
There's this whole genre that's actually gained popularity, even though it's considered outsider music.
yeah,
If you've heard of Daniel Johnson,
not sure.
his stuff is outsider, but
Hmm.
kind of interesting. I managed to get to work with Peter Grudzian, who
I'm
put
sure who
out
that is either.
in '74, put out like this semi psychedelic country blend of an album,
Hmm.
totally off the wall, but it works. And he recorded everything himself. Well, I got to interview him for a fanzine I was doing at the time. Yes, I made fanzines too.
Hey,
And ended up asking him, would you record something with me? And
yeah.
there was a biography movie made on Peter Grudzian a few years ago, and he actually holds my CD with the song on it and plays it for like a second in the movie. So that was cool. He's no longer with us, but like I said, outsider musicians end up becoming popular too. So
Right.
there's all different genres of music out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of strange things, yeah, it came from like Frank Zappa because he had very eclectic tastes, and if even if I didn't go out to necessarily buy all their albums, at least I'm aware of them, like Captain Beefheart or something like that, or uh, we Wildman Fisher, what's it, and
I have
then
that. Yes, the first Wild
I
Man
I don't know how
Fisher.
to pronounce the guy's name, but I've heard clips of the Edgard Varese or something like that. Is that how you?
Parisi, yeah.
Oh, Varese. Okay, yeah. And so, I'm aware of this stuff just because they talked about it, and it's like, well, that's cool because, you know, I would have never looked into stuff like that. I mean, some people kind of frown on this, oh, I'm glad I didn't know about this. The fact that John Lennon uh found got with Yoko Ono, I mean, that was a whole other, dimension of songwriting and singing and stuff. Now, a lot of people just say, "Oh, she just caterwauls and screams and that's it." Well, yeah, if you just listen to the Lennon releases and ignore most everything she did, but I became a fan probably through him. Otherwise I probably wouldn't have cared one way or the other about her.
Right,
So,
right. But he liked that kind of stuff way back when you think of it.
yeah,
Uh, I've tried to make a theory that Yoko became his feminine Stu Sutcliffe,
yeah,
and that Stu was a kind of an unusual artist, and he brought him to his music world to try to play, but really his art was the thing. But John liked both worlds, but he was totally mystified on Stu,
yeah.
and I just think he was searching for his female Stu, and he
Yeah.
found her.
Yeah. I think Lennon was much more of an artist than a musician. And that's not saying he wasn't a slacker being a musician. He was one step away of being Stu himself, if he started selling paintings, he probably abandoned the Beatles and say, I'm going to go sell paintings. But the
Oh, that was Sid
Beatles,
Barrett also. If you know Sid Barrett from Pink
yeah,
Floyd.
yeah, yeah. So, because, yes, Paul's done paintings, even Ringo's done paintings and stuff like that, but it's kind of like, almost just playing off their fame more than, that I really want to paint, you know. Um,
Right,
and
right. It was more his thing at that time, sure.
yeah, whereas Lennon, you know, if the Beatles thing, regardless if the Beatles thing was working or not, he was doing the little sketches that ended up being in his own right book and things like that. And he's fascinated with Astrid Kirchherr's photography and things like that, probably much more than the rest of them. I mean, Paul kind of acts like he's, the artist type, but I think Lennon truly was. McCartney just is a hanger on. Anyway,
Yeah, there was a lot of jealousy in between the two of them. I mean,
yeah.
was it in the new anthology too, where Paul's talking about having that soundtrack to the movie in the '60s
Oh yeah,
with the song "Love in the Open Air."
right.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
And it was like John was hurt because his name wasn't added as like a Lennon and McCartney song, or that he wasn't included on that. But
yeah,
he's the one who put out the poetry books, and
yeah,
he's the one who was in How I Won the War.
yeah,
So like he already was doing solo stuff, and
yeah,
then it was like Paul can't do it too. I mean,
yeah. Well, I'm sure Lennon always thought it's my band, even if he didn't say it publicly. So what I
and
say
then the
goes,
first
and
Apple album is Wonderwall, which was George's thing.
yeah. He seemed to be more gracious with George saying that. I mean, it's like he was saying to George, on the Get Back thing, why don't you put these songs out? It eventually became All Things Must Pass, but it's like that's pretty good encouragement. He probably wouldn't have ever told Paul, why don't you go put out a solo album? You know, I don't think he would have. I don't think he liked the fact that McCartney did McCartney, really, and he really poo-pooed that album at the time, even though there's some good stuff on it. So,
According, did you see the latest McCartney Man on the Run? Did you see that?
yeah, yeah, hmm
According to that, even Sean Lennon himself said that John's copies of the early McCartney albums were worn, so you could see that he played them.
yeah,
So I think some of that was just his public persona, but deep down he sort of appreciated it.
yeah.
But
I wonder.
yeah, the problem with that time period, I wish they could have done something like Genesis did. You
Yeah,
could still put out an album as Genesis, but
yeah,
then they would all have solo albums. They would all do their own thing and venture into things. But something Beatley, uh, the '70s, you had everything from ELO to 10cc, uh, arguably XTC,
right,
Cheap Trick, and I'm just mentioning a few that got labeled kind of Beatles-ish.
yeah,
And it's just, what if the Beatles had continued into the '70s and tried to get more
right,
um, create creative out of the bounds because now they didn't have to have a hit per se. It was
Right.
just, here comes this album out. I
Yeah.
mean, like Pink Floyd bringing out Dark Side of the Moon, the time they didn't expect that to be a hit like it was. And it's
Mhm.
not really a singles album either.
Right.
There was money, I think, but
Yeah,
it
money and
wasn't.
time. But yeah, I get it. Um, the interesting thing, everybody always uses the Genesis comparison, but up until the time Genesis did it, I don't think I think the problem is the Beatles wanted to continue having success. It's just natural. So I mean, why would you only have, and they didn't want to do like the Who put out a bunch of solo albums, but they never did as well as the Who. It's like, the Who would get top 10 album or something, and then Entwistle would put out an album that was decent, but it would go to like 153. Yoko would chart higher than him,
Right.
it's like, um, so that was the school of thought in the early 70s. It's like, yeah, you can put out your solo album, but that's like your own personal vanity project, like the Wonderwall music or the electronic sound or whatever for George or something. It's like once they got serious, I want to make a hit album. It's like I'm leaving you guys. It's like because I always wondered if like All Things Must Pass um would have been successful if there was like a new Beatles album right around the corner, like the month before or the month after, at the end of the year in 1970 or early 71, would that have said, oh, that's just George's vanity project, his big box set obnoxiousness, the real good George Harrison stuff's on this next new Beatle album here,
Gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah.
Like, would that have hurt the sales of it somehow?
Yeah.
Or it was just because it happened to be that big box set was in it highly anticipated, so that's what
Yeah.
sold the most at the time.
Yeah. I, so
I
I'm
mean,
kind
they
of
don't, like
surprised.
you mentioned McCartney, they didn't want it to come out at the same time as Let It Be, which is
Right.
funny because if you look at both album jackets, they're different,
Yeah.
but they're black. They
Yeah.
fold open into the middle part. They're so similar. You could see how somebody would be like, wait a minute. Some people think the Two Virgins cover was on the White Album, so you got that
Yeah, yeah. Well,
that
they
theory
both
too.
are white covers, I'll give it that.
Right,
So it's
right.
like, but there was all that kind of similar thinking about, around the same time. It's like, it's kind of funny. But around the same time as White Album, Monkeys did Head, and which isn't a White Album, but it is
It
very
looks like, yeah, very good because
minimalistic.
that's what I
And
thought.
then since the Rolling Stones got their original cover banned, Beggar's Banquet's another white cover. It just says Beggar's Banquet in white letters, RSVP.
Very
It's not
good.
it's
Yeah,
not the
yeah.
toilet that they had planned. And it's like it's just
They
kind
didn't
of
follow the moms and papas with the toilet,
right. So
I
it's just kind of funny.
guess.
It's like they probably didn't necessarily want to be imitating the Beatles all the time, but the Stones did a lot. Even Lennon said that. It's like this Stones copied everything we ever did. I don't think they necessarily wanted to all the time. I think they did with their Satanic Majesty's requests, but I think they were trying to get away from that with the Baker's Banquet and then ended up being compared because of that white cover.
Right, right.
You know, but oh well. At least it wasn't a double album, so it's like, yeah. Um,
Well, their best double album was a few years later, I thought.
oh, Exile, yeah, yeah, and
Though for me, the Stone stuff is my favorite is with Brian Jones, but that's
yeah,
that's just me.
that's with most people. I think, um, of course, love the stuff that I listened to when I was kid and teenager too, so that goes into the early 80s. But it's like they did have a big lull, I thought, in the mid 70s. I was like, why are they even bothering? You know, and to this day, like they reissued Black and Blue recently, which is like one of my least favorite albums of theirs. And I rebought it because they put a second disc of unreleased stuff. Hey, I'm a sucker, but the unreleased stuff I thought was better than the stuff they put out, and it's like, what are they doing?
Wow.
Too much Jack and Coke and stuff back to those days, I think. I always wondered for years, how come they never put out anything from the Rolling Stones 1975 tour. You know, they toured that year, and for years they'd put out concerts from all their other tours, and they finally did put out one from 75. And yeah, it's Billy Preston and everything like that. And the whole time, Mick is swigging on a Jack Daniels bottle, and I said,
Oh
"That's
wow,
why," you know.
that's it.
He still was able to sing, but he was a little rough because his throat was kind of raspy because of the jack, and it's like he was a little bit out of it too. So, it's like I could see why they didn't think that was their best performances, so
Uh,
anyway, but now I know.
that's great. So we went all over the place. We had comic
Yeah.
books and
All right.
Mad and TV shows and music that we like.
Cool. Well, we can always talk again. Let's kind of wrap it up, but I'll
Sure,
ask this. Do you have anything that you have done in recent time that or even in the past that you want to promote? And if people want to get in contact with you, how do they get in contact with you?
sure. Well, what I've been doing as of late, but it's mostly local libraries, is I've been uh, doing a lecture slash listening to records of Beatles stuff that came out in 1964, and just showing how many of the record labels exploited the Beatles name, and not just, the records that were in like dollar bins, but even the known album groups, like whether it was VJ or MGM or Atco and even Capitol themselves, they all found ways to exploit the Beatles and get,
Hmm.
their buck out there for as much as they could that year. So I've been doing quite a few shows with that.
Hmm.
Um, and another local thing is the Long Island town of Oyster Bay is working on a documentary about the town Hicksville. Yes, there is a town called Hicksville. And they needed some music for the soundtrack of the thing, so my song is the soundtrack.
Cool.
And that'll be coming out this year. So it'll be interesting to see what that does, even with that song on it. It's supposed to get played on TV at some point, too.
Mhm.
Um, but you can always look me up on Facebook. That's the best place to find me, Bob Koenig. Or you could look up. Oh, you mentioned my name is Koenig, but that's okay. I go by any of
Okay.
them.
Well, I did because
uh,
I know Walter Koenig.
well,
It
right
says it
when I
like
met
that.
him from Star Trek once,
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, we have the same last name, Koenig," and he goes, "Wrong. I pronounce it Koenig."
Yeah. So that's why I did it. I'm sorry. And it's funny. I
No, no,
usually
don't be
I
sorry.
usually ask before I go on. It's like, how do you pronounce your name? And I didn't do it this time, but
Don't
it's
be
probably
sorry. That
yeah.
works. And on Facebook also is Bob Koenig Music, and then there's
Koenig.
another page for the keys.
Uh-huh.
Um, well, that's probably the easiest way.
All right.
I'll write if you write me.
All right. Are you doing any shows in the next few months or attending any shows?
Um, yeah, well, next month I'll be at a local library, a
Okay.
library in Roslyn, the Bryant Library. I
Okay.
think it's April 23rd.
Hmm.
I'll be doing my Beatles exploitation show.
Okay. And are you
Uh,
showing up to the Monkeys 60th in Connecticut in September? And if you don't know about it, I'll tell
uh,
you.
do know about it. I'm
I'm
thinking
showing.
about it, but we might be moving at that time.
Oh, I'm actually flying out there, so I will be there. So
Oh,
yeah, so
oh, that would have been cool. I could have
yeah.
met you there.
All right.
Well, you never know.
All right. Well, if we don't cross paths then, we'll probably see each other at some point.
Of course,
Anyway,
of
we'll do
course.
another show like this again.
Thank you so
Um,
much.
all right.
I
And
hope you got a kick out of it.
yeah, or we'll be on Ed Rising show again or something
There
like
you
that.
go.
Yeah, so
Yeah, he's a
uh,
cool guy too.
mhm. All right. I want to thank you, Bob Koenig, for being my special guest. Um, and it's always a pleasure to have people that are passionate about different things. People always wonder, it's like, what's the qualification to have you on a show? Well, if you're passionate about the stuff I'm passionate about, and you could talk about it, well, hey, you're a shoo-in. So there you go.
Ah,
All right, and I want to thank
Thank
you
you so
again.
much.
And we will, this is Mark Arnold, your host on Fun Ideas Podcast, and we will see you next time.
Great.